Welcome to Humane Voices, the official podcast of the Humane Society of the United States. I'm Chad, your host, flying solo today, unfortunately, so you're stuck with me. So you might have seen the recent headlines. 43 monkeys escaped from a facility in South Carolina. What kind of facility did they escape from? Who needs 43 monkeys anyway? So here to give us those answers is a fantastic expert on this issue, Kathleen Connolly, Vice President of Animal Research Issues at the Humane Society of the United States. Hi, Kathleen. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for giving the opportunity to tell the story about these monkeys.
I know. So to start us off, just in case folks haven't heard about this news story, this was a big news story that these monkeys got out. What happened? What kind of facility was this? Where are these monkeys now? Tell us about it.
So in early November, 43 young rhesus monkeys escaped a facility in South Carolina, as you said. And this is a facility that breeds primates to sell to laboratories in the United States for experimentation. They have about 10,000 primates there.
10,000.
10,000. Yes,
Oh
at
my God.
three different sites, 10,000 animals. In this case, all but four of the animals that we know of were recaptured by the facility. And now, of course, I do wonder what happened with those four who are still unaccounted for.
Wow. So they're out there living on the streets somewhere.
If they're still alive,
Oh my
we do
gosh.
not know the fate of those animals,
But the
unfortunately.
weird part is, I don't think a lot of people would understand. There's a primate breeding center, a facility in South Carolina, or I guess three different places that breed. Tell me again, they breed monkeys to sell to somebody else?
To sell to laboratories throughout the United States for experimentation.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So does that happen a lot in the US?
Yes, I think people are often surprised to learn that about 110,000 primates are bred and or used in the United States every year.
Wow. That is crazy. So regarding this particular facility, you've got kind of a unique perspective in that in your previous career, you worked at this place. Is that right?
Yes, I worked at this same facility at all three of their sites with those thousands of animals. I went in because I wanted to help human health and also cared about the animals. But it really opened my eyes to, do we really need to be using the animals for human health? And how they were treated really concerned me. The company at that time, it was a different company that owned the facility at the time, and they
Right.
were involved in illegal importation of primates. So all those factors ultimately drove me to become the advocate I am today, to move us away from using primates and other animals for experiments.
That's incredible that you actually have that connection to this place. So I'm sure you feel a little bit different than other of us who read the news story and like, oh my God, but you were like, I was there a few years ago.
I was there, and everybody I know knew from that time, or knew worked there, sent me the information, and of course, it brings up a lot of emotions, right, about what I saw there, what I'm trying to do today in my job. So it is a very emotional issue for me. But when people learn about it, it becomes emotional for them as well.
Sure. Well, like we said earlier, I don't think a lot of people even know that this happens, especially on that scale, that many primates are used.
Yes. And then many other animals are used, every year, 50 to 50,000, 55,000 dogs a year, over 100 million animals used across the world every year. And that's probably an underestimation. Unfortunately, we don't even count how many mice, rats are used in this country, which people might be surprised to learn.
So this facility in particular, is this like the first time that something like this has happened, that monkeys escape from a facility like this?
No, in this case, this facility has a track record of escapes. They actually got fined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture for escapes in the past, in 2018, I believe it was. Unfortunately, it was just a slap on the wrist, $12,000. So, and the escapes continue.
Oh my
When I
gosh.
worked there, I remember a day when about 25 primates to 30 primates got out of their enclosure. We were able to recover all the animals. But yeah, so this is just a track record of this happening.
Yeah, they get into, I mean, they could be running around in the streets and who knows what kind of Oh God. Anyway, there's a
Yes.
lot going on in my head about what could happen if these guys get if the worst case scenario happens.
Yeah, and in some cases, the monkeys do have diseases that can kill people.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
it is a serious matter. And for many reasons, we shouldn't be having these breeding facilities and research facilities anymore.
So the research, let's go to the other end. Once the company breeds them and then they sell them to research, let's talk about what are these primates, what's their life like in these research facilities?
So primates are used in various ways. In some cases, testing for drugs and devices and other products, or used for research on nutrition or psychology, you
Hmm.
name it. Primates are used for it. We did an undercover investigation a couple of years ago at a laboratory. We've done a few undercover investigations now that show what the animals under, restrained for hours at a time and force fed large quantities of substances to see, if the effects are toxic in the animals or not. I mean, the sad thing is, people might say, well, we need to do this to ensure humans are safe, but about
Right.
90% of the drugs tested on animals ultimately fail in human trials. It's estimated that half of that is because of toxic effects that were not found in the animals and proceeded to clinical trials in humans.
Wow.
So I don't think anyone thinks that 90% failure rate is acceptable.
No, not at all. That's awful. Jeez. So it sounds like this well, I guess let me go back. What is what happens to the chimps at the end of this thing? Do they end up living their lives somewhere? What happens to the ones who are experimented on?
Well, you just brought up chimps, which is
Oh, I'm sorry. I said chimps, didn't I?
primates,
Primates.
which is
Sorry.
primates, but it is related. So let me start with chimpanzees. So going back to, we used to use chimpanzees in the United States for all kinds of biomedical
Right.
research. We heard time and again they're necessary for human health, etc. We kept pressing the issue. Eventually, an independent scientific body took a look at the issue and said, yes, in fact, we do not need chimpanzees any longer. So, that same scrutiny should be done with other primates, so monkeys, like those who escaped this facility. There really just isn't enough scrutiny. We pour all this money into using these animals without what are the human health outcomes that are happening. And as long as there are monkeys there, people are going to use them. So we need to be moving away from this practice.
And it should be said. So what happens to these primates at the end of their
Yeah,
situation?
so nearly all are killed
Oh
at
man.
the end of a study. In some cases, they're reused. I actually went to a conference one time and they said we should be using the primates down to every fingernail. And I was just
Oh my
astounded when
gosh.
you think about like, let's get the most out of every single one of them and what those animals endure is it's just heartbreaking to think of. So yeah, most don't make it out alive.
Oh my
The
God.
very few lucky ones make it to sanctuary
Okay. But that's got to be a drop in the bucket, right? It's
and
not
drop in the
many.
bucket. And
Oh
we
man.
just don't have the capacity to retire every
Sure.
single monkey. They're long-lived animals and they're expensive to care for. So, we can't really rescue our way out of this. We do
Right.
need to just put an end to the practice.
Well, you mentioned that what kind of numbers we're talking about. I mean, tens of thousands of animals. I mean, so every year, that's a crazy.
Yes. We
Regarding
don't
so
we don't want to just empty cages to fill them back up again with somebody else. We have to
right.
get to the root cause of the problem.
So this place that they escaped from was a breeding facility, but that's sounds like that's not the only way that monkeys come into experiment research facilities. Is that right?
Correct. The United States imports about 20 to 25,000 primates every year. There is a federal investigation underway right now with regarding illegal importation of wild caught primates from Cambodia. So they're literally taking the animals from the wild. This is an endangered species. We
Wow.
absolutely shouldn't be taking them from the wild. This is the wrong direction. So there are the breeding facilities in the United States, and importation of animals with this probe into whether illegal importation is happening, just like happened years ago when I worked in a facility and was one of the reasons I do the work I do today.
Wow. So good Lord. Where's Congress on this whole thing? Where, are they pushing back against these breeding places or importation?
Well, unfortunately, they're looking to expand breeding in the United States. So with
Good
the illegal
Lord.
importation probe, they're now saying, well, if this is happening, we should be breeding more in the US. And of course, we say both of those are the wrong direction, and we don't want that to happen. So there's a proposal on the table this year by the Senate to invest an additional $30 million to expand primate breeding. So this is on top of the hundreds of millions already spent every
Oh
year.
my gosh.
In 2024, there was an attempt to do this. We were successful in stopping it. But unfortunately, this is something that comes up year after year as Congress does budget. So now we have to fight back against this.
Oh my gosh. So Congress seems to be going the wrong way on this thing, even.
Yes, at least the Senate. And, Alpha Genesis, the company that has these recent escaped animals, they get about $10 million a year already. And it's just one of many facilities.
Wow.
There's a
You mean
site.
tens of millions of dollars from the government?
Yes, from the
Wow.
government,
Okay.
taxpayer money.
Wow.
There's a proposed site in Bainbridge, Georgia, with ties to another. So this is a whole industry, right? We have companies that breed animals for research, and people might remember us helping remove 4,000 beagles from a facility in Virginia,
Of course. I think
owned.
that was such a huge story. Yeah.
Yes, owned by a company named Innovative. And that company, a former executive of that company, is trying to start a facility breeding primates in Georgia, estimated
Wow.
to have about 30,000 primates. That would make it the largest breeding facility in the United States.
Oh my
Thankfully,
gosh.
the local citizens have been fighting back. We've had people join the local citizens, and this is on pause, but we're going to continue to monitor the situation. So we do need to
Wow.
stop this, and we do need the public's help to do so.
Absolutely. It sounds like, I mean, if a chamber of commerce is trying to, sorry, a chamber of Congress is going the wrong way on it, we need the public to weigh in, certainly.
Absolutely. And they helped us. They helped us fight it back in 2024. We need them to help us again this year.
Wow, that's amazing. So, as far as the issue itself, like, you've already said we don't really need this testing on animals. I assume some technology is there in place. Do we have that technology to sort of replace using animals in these experiments?
We do have a lot of technologies to reduce the animals used. The
Okay,
challenge is, we develop these technologies. Now we want them used and we want them accepted by the government
right.
because the government is used to looking at animal tests, right?
Okay,
Results. So we have to kind of turn around the Titanic, so to speak, where, we've constantly been trying to do this. They've constantly been using animals all these years. We need to change that approach. We shouldn't be spending $30 million on monkeys. We should be spending $30 million on how do we move away from using monkeys, if
right.
that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes all the sense in the world. So it sounds so we've talked about this before, but the finger pointing that's happening between the companies that are doing the research on these animals and all those results go to the FDA, right? And that's what they're trying to get, say, some drug approved by the FDA. But it sounds like both the FDA and these companies are sort of finger pointing at each other, trying to say, no, they're the ones who should change. No, they're the ones who should change. Is that right?
Yes, you'll say FDA says, well, the companies aren't submitting the information to us. If they submit the information, we'll take a look at it. We can approve potentially without it. And the companies say the FDA is requiring it. There is no legal requirement. And in this case, with the FDA, we're talking about like human drugs. There are other products that use animals, including primates, but primates are often used for drug testing. So we do want to break that cycle. So we
Right.
want the FDA to make it very clear. They want the companies to submit the information to them. They don't require animal testing. The companies will often say they do require, is not legally required. Let's make that crystal clear. And let's make it clear when non-animal methods have been accepted. So if the FDA has told a company, yes, we accept this non-animal method, we want that to be made public so we can point to it, and it gives confidence in the companies that they can do it,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's who wants to take the first step. So someone needs to take the first step, and we're doing everything we can to take the excuses. So we have a petition underway addressing some of these issues through legal means.
That's exactly where I wanted to get to. What it sounds like the public voice is the big change factor here, right? They can actually weighing in makes a change. So how can people stay updated on some of these actions that you talked about? You just mentioned a petition.
Yes. So the petition, of course, there's various ways we're tackling this issue, right? It's legislation, regulation, so changing government agency proposals. And this is changing all the time. There's always new opportunities to take action. So we encourage people to follow our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/HSUS animal testing.
Okay.
But in the case of the primate breeding, which is like an immediate need, humanesociety.org/monkey experiments. And
Okay.
this is where the public can say, no, Congress, we don't want our funding, our $30 million going to expanding primate research and testing.
Okay. Gotcha. So humanesociety.org slash
Monkey experiments.
monkey experiments. Got it. And then just get on Facebook and look for HSUS. What did you say it was?
Animal testing.
Animal testing. Gotcha. So there's lots of actions. I know throughout the year and longer, you guys have a lot of different actions that people can raise their hand and say, I want this to stop. So that's a good way to get involved. That's great.
Yes. Federal level, state level, weighing in with even at the local level. So if people tune in there, they'll have all kinds of ways they can help.
Fantastic. Well, Kathleen, thank you so much for letting us know about this. This has been a big news story. I'm curious if we're going to hear anything about the last few that are still at large and what will happen to them. It'd be great if they ended up in sanctuary somewhere, if that's even possible. But
that's what we're pushing for that. But in the meantime, hopefully their stories of all of them who escaped will serve to get the public to take action.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kathleen. This is really good information. Come back and give us an update when you can. We'd love to have you. And everybody, thanks for listening. We will be back soon with another episode of Humane Voices. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you.